Hey YouTube, my name's Jake and I wanted to share some thoughts on the Canon 18-135 IS USM lens. I got this a couple weeks ago and have been experimenting with it in a variety of circumstances, so I thought I'd share my experience so far if you're interested in purchasing something like this. So I got this along with Canon 77D. If you've seen my other couple videos I've posted, I was talking about that. And I've been learning video. I would say I've done more photography than video still, but I've been doing a lot of video and learning how to do that a little bit more professionally. So this has gotten used for both photo and video pretty extensively, and so far I've had a great experience. This range of 18-135 is very, very nice for event photography or basketball games, soccer games, that sort of thing. You're not going to get as far as something like the Canon 55-250. Obviously it's a longer lens, but this being one lens that covers such a wide range is a lot nicer to run around with and be able to get group shots and then zoom in and get that action shot of someone playing a sport or something like that. So I guess quick feature rundown. So it's an 18-135 millimeter, which I believe works out to something like 28 to 200, something like that, if you multiply by the crop factor of the Canon camera, Canon APS-C sensor. It's got image stabilization, that's the IS in the name, and I found it to be really, really effective. I've shot down to, I want to say, a 40th of a second or so at 135 millimeters, which is a lot slower than you'd usually be able to shoot. So keep in mind that only impacts your handshake. It does not compensate for someone moving in your frame, so you'll still get blur if someone's moving quickly or something's moving quickly. But the IS has been really helpful for that. And then along with that, for video, the IS is very, very helpful. Some of the B-roll, most of the B-roll that I've shot for the last two videos I posted, as well as this one, is from this lens and having the IS on. And then I know that some people will probably hate this, but I also turned on the in-camera image stabilization, which is digital. So that crops down the frame, but between the image stabilization here and then using the high setting in the camera, it's some really smooth footage. And really without the digital image stabilization, you still get significantly smoother footage. So the IS is definitely worth having, and for such a simple thing, it's just a switch to turn it on and off. So if you don't want it, if you're on a tripod or something, it's an easy thing to use or not use. It's obviously autofocus, and the USM lens is supposed to be especially fast. I can only speak from the other Canon lenses I've used on my 77D. Right now I'm filming with the 50mm f1.8 STM lens, and that's pretty fast. This, I would say, absolutely is faster. It's the kind of thing where by the time you've pressed the button, as long as you've got a realistic focus point to be focusing on, it'll almost immediately just be sharp and focused for you. Supposedly there's a nano coating on it, on the lens elements, that stops flaring. I haven't really had any issues with flare. Some people like to have that, and I'm sure you could get it if you really wanted it, but so far shooting into the sun hasn't been an issue. So it probably makes some sort of difference. I can't speak too much to that. And then just as far as more features, there is a mount on the bottom of this where you can actually put I think they call it the power zoom adapter or something. You can actually mount a little motorized unit on the bottom and control zoom with the motorized unit. It's supposed to zoom more like a camcorder or something that would be really smooth. I have no intention of buying that, and if it's something you're interested in, I think it's a few $100s, but just so you know that is why there's a little connection on the bottom, and it's an option if you want it. So it's an EFS lens, meaning that it can only be mounted to Canon crop sensor bodies, so something like the Rebel series or the 77, 70, 80D, these sorts of models. You can't put it on a full frame. But I was really impressed when I first got it out of the box at just how hefty it was, in a good way. Yes, this is heavier than some other lenses because of the higher image quality and because of the image stabilization, but I would say it's more than worth it because you have a solid build quality. It's very smooth zooming. You don't get the creep or breathing or whatever you want to call it, where the lens will sort of slide out of itself. And then your focus ring is also very smooth. Speaking about the focus ring, this is a focus by wire system, meaning that right now the lens has no capacity to focus. When you have it on the body, if you have it in manual focus mode, this is actually sending an electric signal back through the camera to focus itself. So good news is it's a very smooth system, and it's a very, I would say, very efficient system. However, if you're used to manual focus and a mechanical lens, you're probably going to miss it. I would say that this is a little bit less accurate, a little bit less of a quality feel in that sense. But it's really nice when you want to zoom quickly to be able to, if you move the ring quickly, it'll actually zoom, or it'll focus quicker, versus if you move it slowly, you'll get more of a fine-tuning focus. So if you are trying to manual focus on something very precisely, you can do that with this very well. It's a 67mm filter thread, which has seemed to be pretty common across a lot of Canon's lenses. Something I'm looking at buying in the future is the Canon 10 to 18mm IS STM lens. So that also is a 67mm, and that would cover from 10 to 135mm with the same filter thread. You can get step-up rings if you have smaller, or if you have bigger filters that you want to step down to this. And then it's an f3.5 to 5.6. So at 18mm, you're going to have f3.5, which seems to be pretty standard for zoom lenses that aren't, professional level. And then at 135mm, you're going to get f5.6, which, yeah, you lose some light, but actually you can get some pretty decent background blur, some pretty decent bokeh from the 5.6 aperture if you are zoomed in all the way and you're framing your subject properly. So it's a completely usable range, and then again with the image stabilization, you can use a significantly slower shutter speed anyway, so you're not really losing that much with the slightly smaller aperture. So I've photographed a lot of nature. I do a lot of landscape photography, so obviously using the wide end of the lens a lot. And then I've also done a couple different soccer and volleyball and basketball games, and being able to get really close in was super helpful. I got quite a few shots that were more than usable because I didn't have to switch lenses, and I didn't have to run around and get closer to someone, but I could hold my position and just give a quick zoom and get plenty close for most events. So if you're considering one lens, either for travel or for doing it all, if you are a parent and have a kid in soccer or basketball or some sort of sport, this is a great option for you. Keep in mind that it is a little bit heavier, significantly heavier than the kit lens with most Canon cameras. It's a little bit heavier than the equivalent model in an STM version because of the nicer glass and nicer build quality. But I got this for $225 off eBay. I'm sure you could find something similar, and at that price range, it's hard to beat it. Between this and then my 50mm that I'm filming with right now, I have basically everything covered. Like I said, I'm considering the 10 to 18 down the road, but that would be something over and above what you really need to get the job done. So if you have any comments or questions, leave them below. I appreciate any feedback on how I'm filming or settings I'm using, and thanks for watching.